Thank you for agreeing to support our student in gathering their graduate practitioner competencies. As you are probably already aware, they take certain modules across their journey with us that provides them with the knowledge that is required, and that meets some of their competencies. However, the majority of the competencies in amongst the 9 main areas need to be gathered within their placement or their work setting. So, for example, a student might work within a school as a teaching assistant. However, they have to cover the age ranges of 0 to 2, 3 to 5, as well as 5 to 7. So they have got to obtain their own placement to cover those age ranges and to identify the type of evidence that they will need to supply to pass the competencies when they come to their final BA top-up year. It is envisaged that they will have completed the competencies prior to their final year. We don't want to end load any work. So with that in mind, you have got Appendix 1, which will give you a brief student profile overview of what they should be doing each year while they are on that journey with us. So I'm going to go through a couple of the key appendices for you, but they are quite self-explanatory, and if you've got any queries, please do not hesitate to email me. My role will be to support you, but ultimately the most important person in this collaborative partnership is the student. They are the key person who books observations, books visits for us to go and see them, books activities with the permission of the setting, and books professional discussions or collects witness statements. Again, I'll go through those later on, but it is fundamentally the student. You do not need to contact them to say, I haven't seen competency 3.8 or where is your competency 4.2. It is not our responsibility. Part of this level 6ness is to make them professionals in the workplace, but also within their own agency, that they can be proactive, not reactive, and unload their own evidence. Students that are not working towards the competencies in a timely fashion will have an intervention, and there is in Appendix 9, page 31, there is a student concern document. Now, primarily that concern document was written for the settings or the placement or the practice educators to raise a concern that we might need to be aware of that has happened while our student is working alongside them. However, you can take that out as well. If as the HEI allocated tutor, you've noticed that, you know, their Warwick e-portfolio is missing or not uploading work, or you've tried to get in contact with them and they haven't come back to you regarding a one-to-one or something. If you feel from that perspective that there is a concern, then please complete Appendix 9. And in that first stage, myself will be involved to try and put down some actions that the student has to make improvements on. If it continues, however, they are at risk of failing the graduate practitioner competencies. It is absolutely fundamental that the students that do leave us in 3 years' time, or 4 years rather, with that GPC certificate, that extra certificate that they've been working alongside, that they are entering that early years workforce at that level 6. We do not want students just to get it because they can or because we've signed something off. It's got to be done, dare I say, ethically and mindfully. And if we've got any concerns as a tutoring team, then we should raise those concerns and have that conversation with the student to help them move forward to improve. So as I said, Appendix 1 is the student profile, and then you will find in Appendix 2, 3, 4 and 5 an outline of the type of visits that you might need to do. Well, you do need to do, sorry. So every student has to have a first visit, and every student has to have a final visit. But there might be in between an intermediate visit. So that might be the student that might be struggling or needs a little bit more support. So we can't really pin down until we have the student profile, we know their background, we know their gaps in age ranges. We can't pin down exactly what each student will have to do because it might differ, but every single tutor visit has got a specific reason for visiting. So the very first one, the tutor visit, will be a 2-hour walkabout. A 2-hour visit with half an hour of that being a walkabout. So very similar to what Ofsted do when they attend settings now. They go on what's called a learning journey, and that is student led. It is yourself, the student, and the practice educator, in other words, the mentor at the setting, the three of you walking around with the student, highlighting and pointing out where she or he will achieve their competencies. In that instance as well, they have to identify and talk about the child that they are going to follow for their first trial study. They will have what's called an observation in practice form completed by the practice educator and one by you. And then at the end of the visit, you compare notes and you agree or disagree whether the student has met the competencies that they set out before the visit. So, as I said, all of these are in your documents. There is forms to fill out, but they are quite descriptive and they require your signature. And once they are completed, I would hope that you would take the time with the student to send it on to them to upload onto their Warwick e-portfolio and for them to complete their student competency report. So, Appendix 6 is the observation in practice. So the student should do a minimum of 2 to 3 of these while they're at a certain setting for a particular age group. Again, as I said earlier, it will differ based on the student profile. But for every observation, there has to be a completed activity plan. What is the student doing? Why are they doing it? What is the next steps? What has gone before? There has to be that continuum shown in their paperwork. There can't be isolated activities, just random idea that came to the head. It's got to link back to an element of the curriculum, either the EYFS or the primary, if they are in year 1, or it's got to link back to holistic development, all of those areas of play and learning and development. What is the point of what the student is doing? So apart from the child study, they are also required to do observations in practice. Again, they design them and they use the activity plan paperwork from the setting, not ours, because each setting should have high quality documents and we want them to follow the professionalism and the direction of their practice educator. But the observation in practice is on page, bear with me, page 21, Appendix 6. The student has what's called a work placement report in Appendix 7, which you have got a copy of. It's just a copy. You don't complete this, they complete it. And it will be something that you will see them uploading onto their Warwick e-portfolio. And it's an aid memoir. I've advised the students to print it off and take it with them each time they attend their setting and just see how they can reach or meet the competencies broken down in the first column. And then we would like their practice educators to give a tick. Is it excellent? Is it very good? Is it good, satisfactory or unsatisfactory? And we need that information to be able to support the student if they're not working at that level 6ness. We need to get in quite early and support them if this work placement report is inconsistent. There's lots of gaps maybe, or they're not getting the excellence or very good. We would expect them to be very good in practice because they should already have the level 3 or a relevant qualification, and they should already have past experience of working with children. So we don't envisage on this framework a very, very bad student. I know that sounds peculiar, but you would expect if they've already got a job working in the sector, then they must be doing something right. So it's about capturing that quality that's already within them and just bringing them up to that level 6. So as part of your HEI tutor role, you might need to complete a professional discussion with the student who has identified criteria that they would like to talk about with you. So that is Appendix 8 on page 29. They have to do the planning form first. They have to plan it. They can't just say, I would like to chat to you at 7 o'clock on Tuesday evening for half an hour. They've got to complete this planning form and send it to you for you to agree. And then during the actual professional discussion on page 30, the student, not you, completes the professional discussion form, but you do sign it off. You do agree with the contents, and it could be that it is an audio. It might be a Teams meeting. It doesn't have to be a Word document written up. It can be a verbal conversation that you have held between each other, but on the correct date, both signed off by both of you. The student concern form is Appendix 9. Again, that can be a concern that you have raised from your perspective in your supporting role. However, we do see this form used primarily by the practice educator who might have observed in practice something that they feel the university needs to be made aware of or the student needs to make improvements in. Appendix 10 is just a copy. You don't have to do anything with this. This is in the practice educators document folder that is completed when the student starts their placement with them. In your copy, page 33 has to be signed off by the setting before the student can ever start their official placement hours. The placement hours at the moment are approximately 80 days for the competencies. How that is broken down will be discussed with individual students in relation to the age range that they currently work with. But overall, the guidance on the ECSDN at the moment is 80 days placement. Appendix 11 is a copy of another form that the practice educator and the student has to do at induction, and it is the permission letter. And it is where the student agrees to follow the confidentiality policy of the setting and agrees not to include photographs or comments or anything that would be unethical in relation to the children or the families that they are working with. So, Appendix 12 is the Student Competency Evidence Report. This is the students' evidence report that they upload onto Warwick ePortfolio for you to check against. So they should, against each competency, so for example, Competency 1, 1.1, demonstrate how you listen to and work in collaboration with young children individually and in groups. It is up to the student in that third column to write down the number of the evidence, what type of evidence it might be. So it might be evidence 1, witness statement, or it might be evidence 2, activity plan. But we also want them to keep this column, this final column, as a ongoing narrative, because those comments, that reflection is very important when they reach their viva, their final year. So we want comments made against each competency. It's not just a tick box. It's not just, yes, they've met it. We want to know how or what did the practice educator think about their work while they were at that actual setting. So all columns need to be completed and systematically or timely uploaded onto the Warwick e-portfolio that myself and you as the tutor will have access to reviewing, perhaps at the end of each term, or when the student feels that they have met something and they bring that to your attention and you need to pop back in and give a comment or just confirm that the competency according to the placement has been met. So that appendices is quite lengthy. There's 9 competencies and it finishes in your document on page 46. So that is the overview of all of the paperwork that you will need to do as the HEI professional tutor. Again, please don't hesitate to ask me any questions and please do take some time. I know you're all very busy to read each document and just get a feel for what your collaborative partnership will be with the practice educator, because it will be between the two of you that you sign a student off. Thank you.